So let's dive into Management Report 101. If you have not met us before, let me give you some context so you're not just like, who are these ladies yapping at me? My name's Erica. This is Jody here. We're part of Hughes and Strong Consulting, and we started this just to nerd out on Keeper, honestly, and be able to be the people who are always figuring out the features and testing stuff out and stuff like that. Because when we were doing our own practices, there was not time for that. So now we get to geek out and share things with you. So that is kind of our inspiration for our company as a whole, and especially for this Q&A. And then one piece that we want to give as a disclaimer before we get started and ripping and rolling is this is not a place to should on yourself. This is one that we want to be really, really careful about. We have a lot of things built out in the demo, and honestly, Keeper does a ton. So this is not the call that you need to walk away being like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad Keeper user. I don't use even half of what they were talking about. That is a-okay. Nobody is putting that pressure on other than you. Okay, so be careful with that. These are all opportunities and just starting to seed new ideas that you may not have come across. We don't even have a perfect Keeper account. So don't hold yourself to the same standard and be really careful with what you put on your plate after this call because you don't have to get off this call and then go implement everything under the sun that we talk about. Okay, so I'll get off my soapbox. We'll get started on the actual deep dive for today.
Yes, but I'm glad we mentioned this because it is so very important. Take everything as inspiration only. As Erica mentioned, today we're going to be doing a deep dive into management reports. So we're going to give a good overview and intro into that, including adjusting and publishing those reports. Again, as Erica has mentioned, we're not going to be doing a deep dive into metrics during our highlight here, but we have open Q&A after that where we will answer anything, show our demo, and walk through anything that you are interested in. And with that, one other piece of housekeeping here is please put your questions in the chat at any moment. If you already have a burning question in mind, go ahead and drop it into the chat. We will get to all of them throughout our time together. So feel free to put those in anytime. Don't wait till the end. Go ahead and drop those in whenever you're ready. And with that, we'll dive in. All right, so management reports. When we talk about management reports, what are we referencing? We are referencing the reporting tab. So when we go into a client page, by default, you land on the close page. So where you have all your tasks, where you have all your keeper tasks and reports that pull in there. But the one that we're highlighting today is the management reports. That is the external presentation of the financial statements that you've collected and that you've put together. These can be published to the client portal. They can be emailed as a PDF. You do have capabilities to configure these reports, and you can do reviews of these reports. But this is not the space to edit transaction data. This is specifically for review and presenting to your clients. The other place where you will see reports, and where often we get some mix up between the two, is on that close page, your final review or financial statements review, depending on how you have that section labeled. This is found on the close page. It is the internal review of the information of the data. This is where you can drill down all the way to the transaction and make edits. You can comment between your team members here. You can add footnotes or star key accounts. Adding footnotes or starring key accounts, those two pieces feed from your internal review to the external management report. So that's kind of a connecting line between the two. But our management reports are found on the reporting tab. That is what we're going to be diving into today. And then the not to be confused with the reports that we review on the close page.
Exactly. So if you can't find what the heck we're talking about and all the buttons we're going to discuss, make sure you're on that reporting tab. It's a super easy mix up to make and be like, wait, where are these? Where do these live? So making sure everybody has context here for where we're actually looking.
Yeah. Now, once you are on that reporting tab, you're going to see default management report. So if it's the first time getting there, Your QBO accounts, those that are connected to QBO, you will see this as your default listing, cover page, table of contents, all of that. If you have a zero client, it's going to be slightly different. Zero does not have that statement of cash flows available on the default here. With this, you can add, you'll see here, you can add pages to this. And you can also remove pages that you're not going to be using. So to add pages, this is a quick summary of what additional pages you can add. And with the profit and loss and balance sheets, you can add multiples of those. So an example of when you might do that is if you want to show your client, here's the profit and loss just for 1 month. Here's the profit and loss for the last quarter. Here's profit and loss for year to date. You can have all three of those different ways of presenting the information in one management report here.
Now, this is one of our favorite pages and a really good one to get started on. If you're just starting to explore this, we don't necessarily have financials in part of our scope, maybe. We want to start dabbling a little bit, or we want to trim this down for clients that get overwhelmed really easily, or they just won't look at that P&L because it's way too much and I don't understand it. This is a way, and this is a page that we can, on the close page, when we're viewing that profit and loss and balance sheet, we can star any accounts that we want to show. And it's essentially like taking a printed version, highlighting those couple of things, and just pulling them out onto one single page as opposed to the full P&L. So this can be added in addition to that full P&L and balance sheet and just be a summary up at the top of kind of our PDF. Or this can be something that we send as a standalone. Maybe this is something that we send on a monthly basis, is just these couple of key accounts. And then on a quarterly or yearly basis, that's when we're doing more full. So lots of options with this, but this is one of those that we like to highlight that is a little bit like harder to conceptualize how you might use this, but can be really great for some of those clients that don't typically look at their reports because you're highlighting and you're just showing the pieces that they find the most useful and valuable.
Mhm. Now, within your management report, you do have a space where you can adjust your settings, right? There are templates here. I'm going to go over that in the next tab, but you can also adjust the basis here. You can decide what happens with empty values. Do you want them to be dashes? Do you want them to just be spaces? You can edit a little bit of how that information is going to look on the page. You can also change the title of the report. So if you don't refer to it as a profit and loss, maybe it's always referred to as an income statement. You can make that edit here and it'll carry through on all of the pages of your management report. We've also heard where certain industries, perhaps nonprofits, have specific wording that they use for their reporting. Again, this is a space where you can edit that and be able to update it to match the client that you are presenting them to. We do have that ability to save templates. So love this ability because it allows you to tinker with your management report, configure the pages, play around with it, get it just right, and then save that. So you don't have to go back every time you go to do a report and go, all right, what was it that I did last time? I remember doing this and this piece, and then maybe you miss it, and then they're inconsistent month over month. By using templates, you can have that consistency month over month, and it allows you to get those pages just the way you want them without having to redo it every time. So sometimes we see this being used for specific individual clients and what that client wants or needs. Some people do this by service tier, depending on what your services, what your tiers you offer in each one of those. Maybe you have a template specific for that. Some have a monthly build out, but then they change it or they add a few extra report pages when it's a quarter end and they want to add a little bit more context or present the information in a different way. The wide variety, these are just a few examples of when we've seen templates being used, but you definitely could have an individual for every single client could have their own template if you configured the pages just the way you want to. But once you do that, you can hit that settings button and save here. or come in and select a new one if you're switching between.
Exactly. And this makes it really easy to onboard new clients, especially if you have like a separate one that you do when you're doing like CFO services that's more involved versus your like basic bookkeeping package. So it just makes it really easy, one, to set up new clients and to make sure that you don't have to write up an SOP for your team on all the things they need to make sure and edit and what pages to add and stuff like that. Let's do that once. Let's tinker while we're in here and get it and then just save that so that we can choose that from the drop down.
And when it comes to publishing, in the top right, you'll see a publish button. If you click on the little menu here, the arrows to drop down, you'll have the option to print or to email. If you select print, it's automatically going to download a PDF to your computer. If you click the email, it will open up the email composer with that report attached as a PDF. But if you just click on the publish button here, it's going to open up this screen and give you some additional options. You can name the file however you wish to name it. You can decide whether you want to have interactive reports turned on and visible or turned off. You also have the option here to notify the client via email. So that would use the default
New report is
new report email.
in
Yep,
portal. Yep.
and have that PDF attached so you could do it all at the same time here. If you are not using the management reports that we have that we're highlighting here, you've got something outside of Keeper that you want to upload and put in as a published report in the financial section, you can do that by clicking this link right here, Upload Custom Report. So this would be in place of the financial report that Keeper creates. So it's one or the other here. And as I just mentioned, there is a new interactive financials available in the client portal. So with the interactive piece coming through, they've added this financials tab to the client portal. And in here, if you've turned it on to drop these into your client's portal, then they'll be able to click around, drill down to the payee level to see where did these numbers come from, how much am I spending per payee down here or per vendor. They can edit the number of months that they're seeing. So it just gives the client the ability to adjust what they're seeing and get into more detail if you want. There's also the ability to add footnotes in here. So if they hover over that, it'll pop up with a message from you that says, you know, this is why I'm highlighting this. Or I think my example here is you've got uncategorized income. We need your feedback on these other things so that we can categorize that and update your financials. So there's lots of ways that you can use this as well. All
Yep. And with
right.
that, we'll go ahead and hop into our demo so we can show you what this looks like live in your account and show you all the clicks that we're going to make to do this. As we're switching over different modes and kind of getting into it, definitely let us know if there's anything that's coming up for you that you have questions about, that you have comments about of how you're using it. Anything is fair game at this point. I'll also open up the space for, we're going to do a little bit of demo on that management report, obviously, but if there's any other questions that you have, that you came with those on your sticky note that you want to ask us about, feel free to queue those up as well.
All right, so we're going to jump into one of our client pages. As I mentioned, it's going to default to the close page. I'm going to give it a moment to load, and then we're going to switch over to reporting. Okay, so here we are at the reporting page. And you do have a few options where you can adjust, click around on them, and it's going to change the view of the, you know, is it the practice logo that's showing your client logo? You have a few different options for how this is being presented. From here, you can tab through your management report, review it, make sure it's what you want it to look like. So you've got a cover page, table of contents. Those are static pages. They're not going to go anywhere. Um, then you have your executive summary. This, all of this is default within Keeper, but you can make some edits if you want to. So if it's something that you're like, I don't really want that to be seen on this page, I want to turn it off. So for example, this bar chart and your key metrics here, you can toggle those off if you don't want them to be visible. Or if this page is not really helpful and you don't want to include it at all, you can click on the three dots and just remove this page. You can always add it back in if you delete it and then decide you want it to be back on there. Um,
Yep. And
this
this is
is
a really good one if you want to, if you have the itch to start playing with metrics, but you're like, I don't know if I can really dive into it quite yet. This is one that we can start to play with some of the same objectives that we hit with the in-depth metrics by just showing bank accounts and things like that. So can be a really good like dipping your toe into getting more into like really
yeah,
advanced reporting.
and you can highlight those or select those here, clicking on this button to open up key metrics. And then you can select which ones. Bank accounts by default is going to be present, but then you can add additional ones if you want to highlight those. And then you get into the financial statements. Profit and loss, balance sheet, statement of cash flows. All of these are going to have spaces at the top for you to configure this. So you can choose whether you're displaying in them by month, or if you have a client that has class turned on, those types of that would then show as a drop down. So you could do a P&L by class. You can decide your date range here as well, whether or not you want it to be whole numbers or have the full decimal. You can have that in there as well. And again, the best way to learn these is just click around and see, okay, if I click this button, how does that change the report? Um, as we mentioned, you can add additional pages. And all of these too have these three dots, so you can remove them if you don't want them in here. And then you can choose to add. Now, when you go to add, this is a QBO client, so there's a lot of options here, including the profit and loss detail. So you can get as detailed as you want in there, and budget versus actuals. If you're using budget versus actuals, this is pulling from whatever you have plugged into QBO. You can also preview what the interactive financials will look like once you publish them to the client portal. So if you click on it here, you'll be able to see, okay, this is exactly what the page will look like for my client in the portal. Give it a moment to load. And you can select here to see advanced controls. So advanced controls are going to be what your client has access to be able to adjust. So you can see what these will look like for them. I'm going to pause here. Erica, do we have any questions so far? Are there any other areas you want to highlight?
Yeah. So one of the questions that we had come through that I think is really good to talk about, because you mentioned being able to add different variations of like that profit
Mhm.
and loss, right? Is there a way to rename those so that we can kind of make it clear what they are? Or do you have any workarounds? I have one in mind that we might be able to try if you don't, but let's kind of explore that. That's one of the questions that came in.
There's not a specific place for you to go in and give it a custom name. But what it will do is it will use your date range. So I just added a new profit and loss. By default, it's adding it as the last 3 months. So my previous one is profit and loss year to date. So it's showing all dates here, but then this one's only going to show the last 3 months. So
Yeah.
that is something
Okay.
that it does by default, but it's not. And if I were to choose just 1 month, then it should show 1 month in the title.
Yeah, exactly. So that is kind of the default settings. But Martha, if you're one who does multiple year to dates with different variations of like your percentage of income or anything like that, and that's what differentiates, they're going to by default show the same title, unfortunately. Now, Jody, one thing we might be able to play with is that footnotes up on the top right. Is that something that we could add a note underneath that title to kind of give more context here of what the difference is between this page?
These footnotes are going to be attached to an account.
Oh, an actual account, not the top.
So it,
Okay. I was
right,
thinking that
it'll
might be
show
in the
that.
little notes. That makes sense to be able to add that
Yeah.
from here. Martha,
Yes.
that may be one that we need to kind of like play around with a little bit. I don't know that we have a quick fix for you today because this is not one of the pages that you can add a note right underneath the title. On the executive summary, you can, but on this one, you can't. So this may be one that we put in a canny and we do a feature request because that's available on a different page. That may be something that the team can build in to some of these other pages. So no quick fix on that one, unfortunately, but is definitely one that I want to make sure that you put a canny in for because that is a great recommendation. And I've heard from a couple other people as well.
So what I just did was I added a custom column and I chose percentage of income. It does not change the title of that. So if I come back to my table of contents, it still is just going to show profit and loss year to date. And I do think that there is a canny request already out there for being able to really specify or rename them however you wish. But Erica, like you said, if there's not, let's get one added.
Yep, I'll take a quick peek at that here in a second, Martha, and see if there's anything we can find on there.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. I want
Yeah,
to see if
while you're looking for more questions or
go for
looking
it.
through the chat, I'm going to show you guys there's two pages that they've recently added for us that gives us more flexibility in what we're able to communicate to our client. So if I click on add page, there's now a content page and an image page. So these are blank and ready for you to add in whatever you would like. So I'm going to add content page, give it a second to load here. This is just an empty text field. So you can edit content here, type in anything that you want. You can copy and paste from somewhere else. You can even have this content page and a template of what you want to include as part of your template. So the content page and a generalized space here can be created and saved. And then you can come in and just plug in the information that you want on that specific report for when you publish it. But this is an open text editor that you can add to. And then the image page operates similarly, where it's going to just give you a page where you can upload an image. So you can drag and drop. This might be good if you have some kind of report or metric or something outside of Keeper that you can take a screenshot of and you can drop it in here on this page. So that is another creative way of getting a little bit more into this report that may not be inherently available. All right, Erica.
So I've got one that I want to make sure and mention. I'm so glad you went into that content and image page because there's a lot of us that are like, well, I don't want to post, like, I don't want to have to do a whole separate custom report. I want to be able to integrate just this screenshot or I've been using that in a different software that I've been using. So there's some really cool opportunities in here to get creative and kind of like play around and make this your own. So really glad you mentioned that. Did want to go ahead and cover while we're in here. I have a couple of questions queued up after, but let's show if you want to be able to go see what this looks like on the client side without having to add yourself to the portal, this is one that you may have heard us mention before, so excuse us being a broken
Mhm.
record, but especially when it comes to the interactive financials, that's been a big question that I've been hearing a lot is like, well, how do I know what they look like for clients? Don't really want to add myself to the portal and then have to log in and get all the notifications. So let's show that really quickly, and then I've got a couple questions queued up for you.
Yeah. So even from this page, from your reporting page, from any of your client pages here, click on portal and it's going to bring up the portal settings where you have your contacts listed. On here, you've got this preview column. Click on the eye and it's going to give you a live view of your client's portal, of that specific contact portal. So if the contact does not have financial reports or financial access, or if that contact does not have files access, you won't see them. If they do have access, then here you are. You can click and see exactly what your client can see. Your client can either click on the link down here at the bottom, or they can go straight to this tab. Both of them take you to that tab. and then they'll see a PDF of that report. If you have the interactive published as well, then you can click on that to see exactly what your client is going to see. You can turn on the advanced controls. You can play around with this just like your client would play around, or preview this while you're on a call with your client and show them what they're able to do here. But they can click in to drill down and see where these numbers are coming from. They can look at that. From here, they can't go any deeper. So they can't click on a payee and get that transaction data like we can from our close page. But this just gets them a little bit closer to being able to better understand their reporting. And there are some other quick key things up here like collapsing everything down, and then they can expand out what they want. They can turn on variances or not, decide, how they want that information presented.
Yeah, I really love this. This is a really cool opportunity for clients to kind of dig in or collapse what they don't want to, and be able to be in more control. I think one of the best use cases that I've heard is actually using the interactives on your client calls so that you guys can talk through together and collapse them as you need
Hmm.
to or flip back and forth between pages. They always have that static report to go back to, but this becomes a really cool tool to show interactively and to dig into with your clients as you're actually doing any advising. So,
They
with
can
that,
download right from here
oh yeah,
too.
go for it.
So they can
Ooh, I
download a
actually didn't notice that.
CSV of this information, of their financials from this page as well. So from the portal. So if they've configured this out and they're like, oh, I want to save this, I want to save this information, they can download that and have a file with the same information.
So cool. They've built a lot into this one. So this is
Hmm.
really neat to see. That actually transitions into one of the questions that we have though. So how how would we recommend kind of introducing clients to these new financials? Because one of the things that comes up naturally is, oh, I'd love to shoot a video. But a lot of us don't have like dummy data. So I wanted to kind of explore that and kind of brainstorm back and forth for Martha and see if there's anything we can kind of come up with. So do you have any initial thoughts? I have
Yeah.
one in my back pocket.
So I've included what have I done? I think with one of my clients, I did end up recording a video, but that was for one client, not for many. Um, so I could use her information. It was more of a helping remind her of all the ways that she can use her portal because she had forgotten all the things that she could do in
Oh, that's
there.
so common.
And I was like, but I had it as a under the guise of, hey, we have this brand new financials tab with now we have like there's a new interactive reports available to you. So I kind of got to do like a renewed training with
Integrated
her,
in. That's
right?
amazing.
Under the guise of this new thing. So just using verbiage in there, you could even just do a screenshot highlighting that this tab is there. Just a screen grab of the top. That's going to be the same across all clients. So you could do
Mhm.
that just to show like, hey, just click on that. And once they click on it, hopefully it should be fairly intuitive that they can then tab through. Or you
And
could
kind of
even,
explore on
do
their own.
a screenshot of this whole section so that they can see them. That would be one way to be able to just put a little note in your email that says, your financial reports have been uploaded and we have new interactive reports available for you on this new tab. Give the screenshot. That would be a very simple, like quick way to do it. What was your thought,
Yep.
Erica?
Piggybacking off of that, will you go over to the dashboard page or the dashboard tab on that? Sorry, that was poor
Oh,
wording on my end.
like which dashboard? Where are we going?
I know. There's so many dashboards. No, this is something that you could add to the announcement as well.
Oh, yeah.
Down here, just mentioning for all clients, it's the page you land on when you pop into the portal. So you could put a note in here, kind of directing in the same way that you would in an email, or maybe you buddy these up together. So Martha, that's one tiny workaround that doesn't include data. I've messaged the Keeper team to see if they have any recorded kind of trainings or anything like that that I may be able to share. So I'll pass that along in the recording of this video and out in the email if I do hear anything back. The other thing that I was thinking, and of course this is more of an individual client basis, is if you have some of those like less tech friendly clients or clients you know that this is going to be so helpful for, that may be something that you shoot an individual Loom for that client or integrate it on the next client call that you have. So that's not a mass blast like a newsletter. I think if you're going to do something like that, I would definitely recommend kind of highlighting that tab, like Jody mentioned, or making an announcement or something like that if we don't hear back from the Keeper team. But I think guiding individual clients through that you know that this is going to be helpful or that they're going to have a harder time for is kind of the two approaches that I can think of without having any dummy data in QBO.
There's
Really good
also,
question.
as part of the Keeper Help Center, there is an article specifically for you to be able to share with your clients that explains the client portal. And I'm trying to find that link for you. Here it is, the client portal for clients. I don't know if this has been updated with the interactive reports, although it does say that this has been updated today. Um, but this gives like a good overview and intro into how to work in here. Um, let me see. I'm trying to go through. I'll just drop the link in. I don't think it's been updated with interactive, but it is a great resource when talking with your clients about their client portal.
Yeah. And that's another one. I did drop the feature request. I found one for being able to rename those pages. So that's in the thread in the comment section of this Zoom video or recording while if anybody needs it. And then I think another, Martha, the last thing I have on that one is if you don't see it on that article, I would reach out to the Keeper team using that widget at the bottom just
Hmm.
to say, hey, saw this article. I would love to be able to show the interactives to my client and give them some instructions. Would you guys be able to update this article? So just kind of flagging their attention to that one if there's not already. That team is super responsive to stuff
Yes.
like that. And the articles are something that they're actively putting forth more energy into making sure they're updated. So the team, when I've pointed that out, have been super helpful on that. So if you don't see it in there, I think that's something that the Keeper team would like to know about so that they can add that new blurb in there.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, ready for the next one, Jody?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is more regarding notifications about client portal questions. So we're going to shift gears just a little bit. So if a client wants to receive the notifications about questions that they have. But they don't want an email every time we ask a question. How can we turn off their email notifications? And what are the best practices for asking multiple questions without the client becoming overwhelming? So let's take the first part of that question and then I'll kind of re-ask the second part.
Yeah. So notifying unless something has changed, let me add that caveat. Um, unless something has changed, clients do not receive notifications every time a question is added to the portal. So the transaction questions here. Um,
I
once
think
you're
one thing to
done,
be really careful about is if you're going through the report, like the uncategorized, let's say, and you're adding a client portal question, there is a checkbox to notify the client
that's where I
or
was getting.
not
Yep,
notify the client. Okay, that's one that I want to make sure that we talk about because sometimes, I mean, I've fallen victim to this where you just don't read that part on the page. So that may be a quick make sure that you're not double like checking that every single time because by default, unless you have that notify client, they should not get an email every single time that's dropped in. That's part of the Keeper portal in general is them not getting bombarded with questions unless we choose that. So go ahead and highlight that.
so as you're going through a report, so I just jumped into the uncategorized transactions just to get to a space where I could add questions. So if I'm adding transaction questions here, I'm going to say, okay, what was this purchase for? Add to client portal. Adding that is not going to message the client. It's just adding it to the portal up here at the top. So that's important to note because that can be scary. Is like, I don't want to ask all these questions if they're getting notified every single time. So typically you would go through all of this, ask all your questions, and then manually hit message client and send the new questions email. Hey, we've added new questions to the portal. Sign in and give us your feedback. Um, if you are working inside of the client portal, so you've already done that part, the client has responded and you're in here working, this is where you're going to see more of those notify client button options. So let me, oh, I don't have them responded on this one. Let me see if I've got it on another one. I might have to
You might
switch
in
clients.
growth custom. Yeah.
Yeah, let me switch clients real quick.
So as she's switching clients, and I want to make sure this is super clear that by default, they should not get a notification about every transaction question. If they are, that's definitely a keeper support thing.
Yes.
So making sure to be really clear there. There's other areas that we're going to watch out for that notify client button that Jody's going to show here. And then we have the option to either message that client to let them know, hey, I've dropped in a bunch. Go ahead and take a look when you get a second, or to turn on auto notifications that go out at a prescriptive time. So every Monday at 8 a.m. if they have open questions. So that's kind of the typical pathway, but let's kind of make sure that we know how to not accidentally notify a client.
I'm just showing the example here of the client responded. I'm typing in a response back to a follow-up. This is on the transaction section here, and I still don't have the notify button. So if I send this, it's just going to add it in here. Next time the client comes through, they'll see it. Where we have that notify button is in the non-transaction questions area.
Mm.
Notify client.
Ah, gotcha.
So transaction questions, it's just going to go into the portal back and forth. You manually send them new questions have been added or new responses have been added. Or if you've got your automated reminders turned on, then the next time that comes through, unanswered questions will trigger that automated. But when it comes to the non-transaction questions, this is where your client might be receiving multiple notifications. So if you are responding to the client here, giving them a response, or even questions from client operate the same way. You can click this button to notify. When you hit send here, this will automatically send that we have responded message. So that is going to be in your email templates. We responded email. If you select that notify client, this is the email that goes out immediately when you hit send. So if that notify client is checked, so what I would do, my best practices are I answer everything, and then on the very last question that I'm responding to, I'll click that so I can be, send emails going, I'm done. But if I select it on every single one, then they are going to get multiple emails for sure. The
Yeah,
other
so that's fine to
space,
just kind of double check and make sure. Go for it.
yeah, that's my hunch is this is what's triggering most of those. The other thing that has recently come out is on your recurring questions, you have a way of notifying your client. So on the reoccurring scheduled or the schedule of your reoccurring questions here, if you have this box checked, then when this question specifically gets added to the client portal, they're going to get an email notification. You can preview that email here. So in this, it'll say non-transaction questions in the portal. Here's a specific one that was just added for you. So this can come in handy if you're requesting bank statements on a specific date that may or may not line up with when your automated reminders go out, or you very much want a specific email to go out that says, I need statements. That's a great use of this. There are countless other ways to use this as well, but that is one example. So if you have scheduled recurring questions that are spaced out, one's on the 16th, one's on the 18th, one's on the 20th, and you have notified client selected for all of those on each one of those days, when that scheduled question gets dropped in, they'll get that email. If you have some on multiples on the same day, so like this one here, September 30th, September 30th, the preview should show both of those questions. Well, here I've got three of them. There's another one down here. So only one is going to go out for all three of these. So they won't be getting three emails on the same day. Keeper does collect them all together to send one. But that would be another space where extra notifications could be going out as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good mention that if they're scheduled on the same day, that they're not getting three separate emails, because that's a big concern that a lot of us had when it first
Yeah.
rolled out. So those would be the couple of places to double check if your clients are getting too many notifications. The other one that I want to show while we're here is, Jody, let's do a quick preview of where to actually turn on or off those auto notifications. If this
Yeah.
client, we've double checked both of those and this client is still getting way too many emails and we want to just send manually, let's quickly cover that while we're
Yeah.
answering this question.
So at the client level, you'd come back over here to this portal settings. And right here at the top is where you can enable or disable your reminders. So if they're just getting too many and you just want to switch to manual, uncheck this and they will not get those auto reminders anymore.
And that is for this client, all
Specifically.
contacts. Yep.
Yes.
So just want to make sure that that's super clear. You're not turning it off for all clients here. This is just on this
Yeah.
one, but it will be applicable to all contacts associated with this client. So just be careful, go in with that knowledge.
Mhm.
But hopefully that helps give you enough to troubleshoot or know how to turn that off completely if it's still too much.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of that question that I want to kind of brainstorm a little bit is best practices for asking multiple questions without overwhelming the client. I've seen a couple of really creative examples where if you need to ask multiple questions on a transaction, we label them one and do a space, and two, do a space, and three to let you know that there are multiple questions and not just let you skim through. But I wanted to see if in practice you had a different suggestion for something like that.
No, this is a great question. I think it's a very common problem. I have asked clients before, what was this for and who was the vendor? Seems really simple to just answer both of those and you only get one response
You
back.
only get one, and it's not
Um,
always the first one, oddly enough. Sometimes it's the
right.
second one, and then you have to ask a follow-up question to that
Yeah.
question.
So it may vary, and you might have to play around and just experiment, trial and error, what works for that specific client. I really like Erica's idea of doing a one and typing in your question and then tabbing down in a two and type your question. To me, the format of that looks different on the tab. So I'm going to go to the portal setting and let's see what that looks like. From the client view. So if they click on that transaction, they're going to see one, two. Hopefully, intuitively, they would then respond with a one and a two and answer both of those. I think it really is going to vary client to client, and the personality types maybe of that.
Yes.
But I do think it comes down to trial and error. Get creative. If something that you're doing is just not working, maybe have a conversation with the client and say, how do you want me to ask you these questions so that we can get all the information in one shot instead of having to go back and forth multiple times on the same transaction. It may be worth having that conversation directly with your client too.
And this is one that I want to take just a tiny detour on as well, like related detour is sometimes that client communication is the piece that's going to unlock. And this is going to sound like a cheesy soapbox answer from a consultant, like, of course. But I think one of those that can sometimes get uh, frustrating on the client end if they don't have context is like, why are you asking me this many separate questions or an individual question for each statement that you're asking me for? Like, there's so many, there's like 10 in here. I feel overwhelmed. One of the things that can kind of help is giving them context that by asking individual questions, you're going to get a notification or a heads up if you forgot one. If I ask them all in the same, then I'm going to have to bombard you with follow ups and, hey, you forgot this in the same thread. And it gets really confusing. So that may be one piece that kind of helps grease the wheels on this conversation as well when it comes to overwhelm is seeing what specifically is overwhelming. Is it the amount? Is it that we don't know how to search to use those tags and kind of filter it down? What's actually coming up? Is it just the notifications that I'm getting in my inbox? Overwhelm can be one of those that it feels like it's everything in the moment, but there's probably a couple of key unlocks that we can do, even just providing context on why we're asking them in this format, so that they can understand that, hey, this means that Keeper as my assistant can remind you about anything, and I'm not having to call you every 3 days about that question that you forgot. Like that sort of thing can sometimes help as well. So that was a bigger question. I know we gave a lot there, but I'm hoping that gives you a little bit to chew on. Anna, if there's something else that you want to chat about on an individual level that you need to troubleshoot, shoot us an email. No big deal, okay? Beautiful. Okay. Jody, we do have a couple more queued up. I've got my eyeballs on them to make sure we go back to them. Let's switch over
Okay.
to our slides really quickly in case anybody needs to hop off for another meeting. I want to make sure that we talk about some freebies, and then if you need help beyond just freebies or these Q&As. So a couple of free resources on our, you can get to everything from hughesandstrong.com/keeper. That's one where we have lots of PDFs and sign up for more resources and stuff like that. So that's a really easy place to go if you're looking for more of these or PDFs that show, like, okay, how do I use tags? Or how can I set up my client portal? Like stuff like that. We have all of our previous recordings on our YouTube channel as well. So if you had to hop off early or came on late and wanted to catch the full breadth of this recording, or if you want to go back to previous topics that we've covered, any of that's going to be on our YouTube channel as well. And then from there, we have a full spectrum of support. So whether you are somebody that just needs a brainstorming session or somebody to train your team, all the way to, I love this, but I don't want to set it up. Can I brain dump all the info I have on my client and you guys set it up? Anything within that spectrum is fair game, including diagnostic reviews. That's one that we do a whole lot of, hey, I've set this up, I've done a DIY job, I've been using it forever. I don't know what I need to do next or what I can do to kind of troubleshoot this issue that I'm having, or just get a second set of opinions for where to go next and other features that you might be able to play with. So, full spectrum on that side. Easiest way to reach out to us is go to hughesandstrong.com/contact. That'll get it directly to me, and I'll point you in the right direction for any resources that you might need. So, just wanted to make sure in case you got on this call with the intention and then you got overwhelmed with all the stuff that you need to update in Keeper, want to make sure you have a resource for that. Alrighty, so switching back to a couple more questions. Jody, oh, this is a good one. How do we turn off the emails the team is receiving for every single document that is uploaded for each client? And
Yeah.
is there a way that we can get like a daily summary instead of individuals? So let's chat through that one because this is a really common question.
Yes, I agree. I feel this one. And I think there's Erica, let's see if we can find it. There should be a canny request out there for this, to be able to collect those into a daily summary. But notifications in general, let's talk about that. The short answer to it is when it comes to file uploads, there's not a way to collect those into a daily summary yet. So we'll find that feature request and if it's not out there, I think it should be out there, but if it's not, we'll create one for sure, and send that out with the recording. Uh, but let's talk about notifications in general. Each person, each user can come up to their user settings. So either click on their initials here or their profile photo, whichever one opens up their user settings. They then can go to this notifications tab to see who they are. Nope, it's over here on client questions. Okay, things move around. Client questions is going to show you which clients you're subscribed to. This would be a key place to check. Do you have enable instant notifications turned on? If they do, then that means that they're going to be getting an email for every response to a client question. coming through. This does not include the uploads. So that's where like we need Keeper to add in here the space to, bulk the client uploads or have that as part of this. But this will at least be the space to come to see, are you getting the notifications for the correct clients, or are you receiving notifications for clients that you no longer need to have? Or are you missing any clients that you should be getting notifications for? So user settings, client questions, this is going to show you who you're subscribed to for when clients answer questions or respond. Um, Other notifications are here. This is more for the internal stuff. So if you have sign-offs going, this is a space to update those notifications. Emails about internal comments, assign tasks and sign-offs, that is here as well. And then a daily task digest. Again, this is all the internal stuff. Client questions would be the external from the client to you. But unfortunately, the uploads aren't part of this yet.
Yep, and I did go ahead and drop that feature request down in the chat. So if anybody else is looking for that, go to Ellen's question and then see the response underneath. Um, this is one that I've heard a lot of chatter in the community
Yes.
about. Okay, cool. We need more ability to pick and choose what I want to receive notifications about and how. So it is not just you, Ellen. So
Yes.
let's make sure to kind of all collectively go in there and upvote that candy request once so we can keep updated when it gets actually rolled out or the status changes. But two, let's just make sure that they know that this is something that we all really want and need.
I also want to point out that when you upvote a feature, if it's something that you're really passionate about or you have a specific use case for why that's so important, comment. Add your comments to that feature request as well. Get that conversation going underneath the feature request. That also increases the visibility of that request.
The third hack that or second hack that I have actually is posting it in the Facebook group. That
Yes.
feels like you're being shameless or being too loud or whatever. Sometimes for some of us, it's not. It can be a really, really great way to get that out there because some of us just haven't explored like or needed that. But as soon as you mention it with the use case, it's a super easy upvote. So, adding a comment adds more visibility, posting it in the Facebook group obviously adds more visibility, and it's not shameless to go in and have everybody on your team also go upvote.
Oh,
Like those
absolutely.
count.
Every user has a vote.
So use whatever you need to get more visibility on this or any feature requests, to be honest.
Yes.
Feel free to reach out to us if there's anything that you need. Otherwise, we'll hopefully see you next month.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.